To tonight's town hall virtual meeting hosted by our friends at the Montana Farmers Union and Northern Plains Resource Council. My name is Russell Nemitz, an agricultural broadcaster and owner of the Western Ag Network, a 7-state radio network based here in Billings, Montana. And I'm certainly pleased to be serving as tonight's MC as we cover a very important and timely issue to farmers and ranchers, not just here in Montana, but across America, right to repair. Now, tonight's town hall meeting will examine the issue of right to repair as it relates to agriculture and also address legislation, LC 1562, currently at the Montana legislature in Helena, addressing the need for adequate service along with repair that will allow our farmers and ranchers to bring quality crops and their livestock to market. Now, our town hall meeting tonight is interactive, and we're pleased to have a panel of distinguished guests and experts joining us, including Montana Farmers Union President Walter Schweitzer, State Representative Katie Sullivan from Helena, State Senator Mark Sweeney from Phillipsburg, and Kevin O'Reilly with U.S. PIRG, a right to repair advocate. And by the way, Representative Katie Sullivan and State Senator Mark Sweeney are the actual sponsors of the right to legislation, LC 1562, that I mentioned, which is currently working its way through the Montana legislature in our state capital. Also participating in tonight's town hall meeting from the Montana Farmers Union organization are Kim Mangold, Rachel Prevost, Lindsay Bruno, and Audra Lubbert. Now, in just a minute or so, we're going to hear from each of our panelists and let them share their own personal stories or experiences of why right to repair is so important to them and why others need to take note and become advocates as well. But before we do so, as I mentioned earlier, this indeed is an interactive town hall meeting, meaning we want to hear from you. So with that said, once we hear from each of the panelists, we'll then open up the town hall meeting eventually for questions from you in this virtual town hall meeting. And please don't be bashful. If you have a question and don't want to be on screen with us, feel free to use the Zoom chat room and direct your questions to Lindsay or Audra, or you can ask your question via the Montana Farmers Union Facebook page and leave your question there. But be sure to tell us who you are and where you live so we can be sure to properly introduce you. And if you'd like to ask a question yourself, we ask that you please raise your hand, be courteous to the others in tonight's virtual town hall meeting to be recognized. Remember, what makes events like this one important and valuable, whether in person or virtual, is your participation. Now, our goal tonight in the next hour or so is to have meaningful discussion on right to repair, where we can all learn a little bit more about this important issue, how we can become more engaged, help organizations like Montana Farmers Union address the issue on your behalf, and also leave you with some valuable resources where you can learn more about right to repair and become an active participant on this important issue. So I think that pretty well lays out our agenda for tonight's town hall meeting. And I would now like to invite Montana Farmers Union President Walter Schweitzer to share the purpose of tonight's town hall meeting and maybe expand a little bit beyond that and share his personal story and experience with this issue, right to repair. Walter?
Thanks, Russell, for that, and a pretty good introduction to this issue. You know, back in the day when farmers used to get together at the coffee shop and talk about our problems, almost always an issue with repairing our tractor or combine comes up. And you know, it is getting to be more and more of a problem because so much of this newer equipment is all controlled by electronic control unit, a little computer inside it. And it's, unless you have the software and the hardware to be able to identify the error codes, you don't even know where to start on repairing this equipment. This last summer, I was haying with a newer tractor on my baler, and it kept randomly shutting down. And I played around with the fuel filters. I did a bunch of the obvious things, but I didn't have the software to be able to identify the error code. Eventually, it started shutting down so often that I had to shut down, pull it off of my baler, and put a 40-year-old tractor onto my baler to finish the haying season. And I called my dealer to let him know that I have a problem. But haying season's busy everywhere at the same time. And they were busy, weren't able to get out to me right away. And they also said that they needed to have that hooked up at the tractor when it stopped so they could identify the error code. So I ended up shipping my tractor into the dealer and they worked on it. It stayed there for about a month. It was a simple fix at the end of the day. It was a fuel sensor. It only cost about $800 to actually do the fix. But when it was all said and done, when you paid for freight, when you paid for the hours that was in there, my bill was about $5,000. And, it's not a big bill, keep your tractor going, but it was a nuisance because I lost the use of my tractor for a month and I was the unknown. If I had access, if I could have just rented that software, if I could have just bought that software, I could have known right away my problem and either fixed it myself or had the dealer come out with the part to fix it. And it's these sort of stories. When I shared mine, I heard from more farmers all over the state that they're having the same problem. I was out visiting a farm and they were harvesting their hemp, and they had a combine, looks a little bit like the one that you have behind you there, Russell. And we made some adjustments to that combine. They were heading back out to the field, and all of a sudden it stopped suddenly. And so we kind of drove up to see what was wrong. And the farmer in it, he got out and he almost had a smile on his face, which seemed strange. And he says, this combine's been doing this all season. And my dealer told me the next time to do it, just stop, leave it, and their mechanics can come out and maybe they'll be able to figure out the error code. So he was actually excited that he might get his combine fixed. Now, if he had the access to the software, he could have had it on the combine. He could have identified the problem and probably have fixed it a month before. And so I'm glad that we've all got together and Representative Sullivan and Senator Sweeney have agreed to carry this bill. And I told them I would bring some of my friends and neighbors onto this town hall so they could share their stories with them, so they know the importance of what they're doing. And again, thank you all, and I'll pass it on.
Well, it is very important, Walter, and thank you for sharing your story. And it's important that our elected officials, like the ones that are joining us tonight, get the opportunity to hear directly from producers, volunteer leaders like yourself at the Montana Farmers Union and others about important issues like right to repair. With that, let's go ahead and learn a little bit more about LC 1562, currently working its way through this legislative session underway in Helena. I know we have Katie Sullivan with us tonight, and hopefully we'll have Senator Sweeney join us if he isn't already on the program now. But Katie, go ahead and describe the piece of legislation that you and State Senator Mark Sweeney are working in cooperation with to hopefully address the right to repair issue for Montana farmers and ranchers.
Now, Russell, I see that the Senator's on. Now he's got this grizzly uniform on, and so it's a little hard to focus. I can appreciate that, Russell, you probably didn't see him wearing that.
I didn't, but if I could undo my screensaver, which just happens to be one of the Downs' combines north of Billings, I have a big Bobcat logo behind that. So we can go head to head if we want.
Oh, no. Okay, I guess I'll jump in here. So I'm Katie Sullivan. I am out of House District 89 in Missoula area, actually. So I guess I'm a grizzly too. So sorry, everybody. But I like your sweater, Mark. So and I guess in my day job, I'll just give a little background. I'm a patent, trademark, and copyright attorney, and I help businesses start and protect all their inventions and brands and everything like that. And so you're wondering probably like, what is this gal from Missoula doing sponsoring this bill? But I think because what the bill's based on, I think I can be a good advocate and take a really good approach. That's like this is about businesses. It's about helping businesses. It's also about respecting intellectual property at the same time. It's a good bill, and I think it's really reasonable. So I'm hoping I can do a really good job for you guys and have a really good hearing. So what the bill does, overall, the bill gives the owner the ability to purchase the diagnostic tools to make the repairs themselves, saving them time and money. It supports farmers who don't have time to wait for mechanics or have the extra money that they need, extra money to spend just to fix possibly a small issue. And so overall, what it's doing is it's a short bill. It's only 4 pages long. And it's just saying that these original equipment manufacturers are going to make available for sale the documentation, parts, and tools on a fair and reasonable term. So we're asking these equipment manufacturers to make things for sale so that you can fix your equipment. And it's really, that's the meat and potatoes of the bill. And I'm happy to talk details on it, but I don't want to get too into the weeds unless someone wants me to. So,
you know, we'll probably have lots of time to talk more about the details later in the virtual town hall meeting. And let us just be clear, Katie. I mean, when you say it's just a 4-page bill, hey, those of us in agriculture that are familiar with the state legislative process, we're happy that it's just 4 pages and not several hundred pages, because we know we can actually probably get this through and make a real difference in Montana agriculture. Well, I'm happy to hear that State Senator Mark Sweeney is on the line. And Mark, go ahead and throw in a little bit about the piece of legislation that you're sponsoring on the state Senate side regarding right to repair.
My bill will be just a mirror image of Katie's, but coming from the Senate, I think hers will come out before mine. So we'll just kind of see how it goes through committee and be in close communications on how these bills are advancing. I was contacted by you guys earlier to consider carrying the bill, and it sounded like just a real basic proposal that farmers have the right to repair their equipment. And it sounds like the problem was well intended, or that there was good intentions that have kind of gone wrong a little bit, and that led to delays, and that Mr. Schweitzer talked about, and other farmers, and talking with farmers and rancher friends of mine. It seems like there is kind of a common problem out there that maybe we just need to get it working for everybody, especially in rural Montana, where people are quite a few miles and hours away from dealerships. So tonight, I think I'm more listening than I am trying to come up with solutions, and just hear what people are dealing with out there on the Montana landscape.
You know, Russell,
the sweatshirt here, so.
Well, we can recognize you now, Senator Sweeney.
Yeah.
The thing I like about the bill that Representative Sullivan and Sweeney is proposing here is it's focusing on the equipment manufacturers, not our dealers. You know, our dealers are on this, they're playing on the same team as we are. And many of them, they take their orders from these huge, I mean, there's basically 3 equipment manufacturers that manufacture all the equipment, most of the equipment we use here in Montana. And these dealers really are kind of at the mercy of these equipment manufacturers. And so this bill just kind of helps run interference for our local dealers to help them out so that they aren't getting the heat of this. And I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to have you explain that in detail a little bit further, but it sometimes may seem that our local implement dealers, we have them in the crosshairs with right to repair, but that's certainly not the case because these guys are very, very important to our rural communities and our rural landscapes in rural states like Montana. I mean, we all know that a lot of times, I mean, they're sponsoring our conventions and meetings. They're sponsoring our kids' 4-H and FFA events. But as you mentioned, I mean, Walter, a lot of times it's just a directive from the top down and their hands are tied. And so we certainly don't want to, you know, put the bullseye on our local guys across states like Montana, by no means. As I mentioned in the introduction, we are very lucky though tonight to have Kevin O'Reilly with us from US Purge, a right to repair advocate. And Kevin, we're very pleased to have you as part of tonight's town hall meeting. And we're dying to hear more about your efforts in other rural states like Montana, where this is a huge issue.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Russell. And I'm really excited to be here talking right to repair with y'all. Just to give you a little bit of my background, I'm an engineer by training and have since, for the past couple of years, been a right to repair advocate. Like Russell mentioned, I work with US PIRG. We're a nonprofit organization. PIRG stands for the Public Interest Research Group. And that's really what we're about, is about standing up for the public interest. So, you know, I want to tell you a little bit about the work that's going on right now across the country with right to repair, as well as give you a little bit of kind of the historical context and the way that this has developed over the past, you know, decade or so. But, you know, as Walter talked about with his story, and as many of you have probably seen firsthand, you need software tools to fix modern farm equipment. And because the manufacturer doesn't sell these software tools, that means that, you know, you're reliant on authorized technicians and the high costs and long delays that can sometimes come along with that. So right to repair is really a simple solution that comes from a simple idea, which is that we should be able to fix our own stuff. It really got to start back in 2012 with a ballot measure in Massachusetts that won 86% of the vote, that mandated that car makers in particular provide independent repairers and consumers with what you need to fix your car. So because that bill passed, that's the reason you still have options when your car breaks down, right? You can fix it yourself, you can take it to your local mechanic, or you can go to the dealer. But at the end of the day, that choice is yours. Now, we believe that there's no reason this shouldn't be the case for farm equipment. You should have the freedom to choose who fixes your tractor or choose to fix it yourself. But the fact of the matter is that you don't, you know, despite promises to start selling tools this year, manufacturers continue to refuse the software diagnostic tools, or sometimes they sell them, but they sell them at, you know, unrealistic and unattainable prices, making self-repair all but impossible. So, you know, kind of the reason that this happened is frankly, you know, we talked about how the dealers don't always have a say in this, but the manufacturers profit a lot when they can control repair. By setting up this kind of repair monopoly, they're able to profit a lot, and we've seen them try to protect this revenue stream. You know, recent filings from John Deere have even shown that repair and services have been 3 to 6 times as profitable as the sales of new equipment. But, you know, by introducing this bill for right to repair, both Rep. Sullivan and Senator Sweeney are putting your right to fix your equipment above corporate profits. So, you know, at US PIRG, we've been fighting for your right to repair your tractor, as well as your cell phone, your appliances in your home, medical equipment, and more for the past 3 years. And this year, we've seen, we're actually working with 16 different states on 25 different bills. But in particular, we're seeing a lot of excitement around agricultural right to repair. So in addition to this bill in Montana, Florida, Nebraska, South Carolina, Vermont, and Missouri have all introduced bills focused on farm equipment and being able to fix that stuff. And, you know, to tell you a little bit about what's been going on. So last week, there was a hearing in Vermont that went really well for the cause, frankly. You know, committee leadership was really receptive and seemed to sympathize with the concerns of farmers. And we've already had a huge step forward in Florida, where the bill there passed through committee with unanimous support. We think that Montana can continue this momentum, but the way that happens is if your legislators hear from you. So the best thing that you can do to advance this bill and restore your right to repair is to write and call your legislators. We actually have a tool for you to do that, which we'll be sharing. If you go to montana.repair.org, you can write an email directly to your legislator telling you that you support this bill and why you support it. And also we have a tool that will patch you through so that you can either be connected with them over the phone or leave them a message. You know, at the end of the day, I think the way that we win this is we come together so that we can fix our own stuff. And I'm just happy to be here. I thank you all for your time and look forward to talking a little bit more.
Well, Kevin, we are happy to have you part of tonight's town hall too, just to bring your wealth of experience, not just what you're working on the agricultural front, but as you mentioned, you know, right to repair doesn't just affect farmers and ranchers. It really affects everyone, and a lot of today's products, most of today's products, I mean, that deal with computer software, and there isn't a whole lot out there that doesn't anymore. So thank you for being part of the town hall meeting. You know, I was thinking about what Walter Schweitzer said earlier, just describing his own personal experience with right to repair. And, you know, in agriculture, I mean, time is money. And if you can't get your equipment fixed, whether it's during haying or harvesting or, you know, a tractor during this time of the year when you're out trying to feed your livestock, I mean, it really puts you in a bind. So it's good that we're addressing the right to repair issue in tonight's town hall meeting here tonight. Again, sponsored and hosted by the Montana Farmers Union and the Northern Plains Resource Council. So I guess with that, I would invite our panelists now to go ahead and we'll open it up for discussion amongst the panelists and dig a little bit deeper into the right to repair issue, and certainly the legislation LC 1562 that is sponsored by State Representative Katie Sullivan and State Senator Mark Sweeney. And I'll just do a follow-up with you, Kevin. I guess you named some of the other states that are doing similar legislations back home there. And you touched on it just briefly, but maybe just expand. You know, a lot of times farmers and ranchers, we're busy. We're busy doing our own day-to-day things, but their voices really do matter when it comes to issues like this, whether they take the time themselves to attend a hearing in Helena, or maybe they take the time to write their testimony and submit it to an organization like the Montana Farmers Union so they can represent them at a particular hearing like right to repair. Just expand, I mean, farmers and ranchers' voices are very important, and they carry a big stick when they all talk united.
That's totally true, Russell. I think that ultimately, you know, legislators go into this line of work because they want to serve their constituents. So when you come to them as a constituent, as a farmer who is helping to provide you know, your state and our country with the food supply that we need to continue to live the kind of life that we live, I think it carries a lot of weight. And to give you an example of some of the work that happened in Florida, the state senator who brought the bill in Florida talked about it. And the reason that she introduced it was as she went around her district, she talked to a lot of farmers, and this was something that they cared about. They talked about the difficulties that they were facing, the restrictions on repair that they were facing, and what impact that had on their, you know, their lives, their ability to continue to, you know, run their farm and make a living. And she talked about that a lot in the hearing. And as a result of that, the rest of the committee really jumped onto that. And they even thanked her for going out on the campaign trail, finding an issue that her constituents and farmers cared about, and bringing that in and giving them an opportunity to deliver a big win for farmers. So I think that this is a great opportunity to do the same thing with your legislators and tell them why it matters to you so that they can help you out, because that's what they're there to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Katie or Senator Sweeney, do you guys want to dive a little bit more into your particular piece of legislation on the right to repair issue, LC 1562? Talk a little bit more about the guts of it, or what farmers and ranchers can expect within it?
Sure, I'll go first, Mark, if that's all right with you.
Of course.
Yeah, so I was gonna say that with the session being how it is with COVID and all, that testifying in a hearing is easier than it's ever been. And they're allowing people to register and testify on Zoom. So having someone participate live in person on Zoom would make a huge difference. And now that it's allowed, I would say that's one of the most impactful things you can do. I mean, writing your legislator, calling them right now and saying, hey, this is coming at you, you should support it, is awesome. But also registering just to give 1 minute of testimony and saying this is a real problem, because what I'm hearing from some lobbyists, one of the talking points is that this is not a real problem and that constituents are lying to me that it's not real. And so I think it's more important than ever to, let people know that it is in fact a real issue. And so I would really encourage that if anyone has the time or is able. That's my 2 cents. Mark, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
That's a good point. And when I found out about it, I took the time to go out and talk with farmer and rancher friends of mine that I thought might have the issue. And I did find that some of them were. My district is all of Granite County, so Phillipsburg, Drummond, and then also around Deer Lodge. So those are the agriculture areas of my district. And I think there is some interest, and people locally that I've talked to, farmers and ranchers, were glad that I was able to take this issue up. So I'm still learning. It just rang true that people should have the right to fix that equipment on the farm. That's something that Montanans have prided themselves, I think, farmers and ranchers, on the ability to do. Now it's just not baling twine and wire, putting it together, but it sounds a lot more technical. But certainly they're capable of fixing and repairing equipment on the farm and ranch, and I think that's a tradition that needs to continue. So again, I look forward to
real
hearing.
Problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't let anybody tell you anything different. It is a real problem.
Okay.
Now, one of the things, and there'll be others that'll speak to that, but I just want to talk a little bit about logistics, because my members are busy. We're feeding cattle calving right now, and that 3 o'clock window may not work for all of them. And so I'm really curious, Representative Sullivan and Senator Sweeney, you can call into that 444-4800 number and have a message delivered to the Ag Committee or to individual representatives. You can send an email, or you can go on the website and log on to that bill and write your comments. Which is the best way for you guys to get a message from us?
Mark, do you take this?
Yeah, with me, I like to give people my personal phone number, 406-560-0171, and probably a text message is the quickest way, and I can respond to that whenever I can. The other way is email. And again, I like to use my personal email for these. Otherwise, you're just getting swamped, and I don't want emails to get buried. But it's masween@hotmail.com. So not Sweeney, but masween@hotmail.com. And those 2 messages, or just give me a phone call, but usually the text message, and then I'll follow that up with a phone call.
Yeah, and to jump onto that too, we do get a lot of emails, but emailing is great. Emailing us and saying you're my representative, or you're on Ag Committee. Those are the big 2 right now, is Ag Committee and your personal representative, and say, this is important to me and I'm asking you to pay attention. And I like Mark's idea of texting. I never thought about that before, but if you go onto the legislative website, you can find our phone numbers. So send a text. I think that would be kind of a unique way of getting attention. And I'm not getting a lot of texts right now. So that could really catch people's eye, I think, right now.
Yeah, very good. And at the end of the program and throughout it, I'll do my best to remind folks of both of your contact information, and we'll certainly relay it to folks at the end of the program. We do have a question, and I'm not sure who exactly wants to address it. Maybe Kevin, maybe one of our state legislators, maybe Walter Schweitzer. But the question is, How does right to repair deal with modification?
I'll let Kevin.
Do you want me to take it? Okay. Yeah. So, the fact of the matter is right to repair is not about modification. It's about repair. Modification, is illegal, especially if you're going to be going around environmental or safety emissions rules now. And it will continue to be illegal, when this bill passes. So they're really separate issues, right? What we're dealing with here is just the tools that you need to get your equipment back up and running when it goes down, and to do that in a timely and cost-efficient manner.
I have nothing to add. That was perfect.
Walter, you want to throw in on that?
It's exactly right. All I want to do is be able to fix my tractor. I don't want to take it to the drag races.
That was in your younger days, right?
If you do that, let me know. I'm buying a ticket, Walter.
That's right.
I did enter the Combine Demolition Derby when I was a youngin'.
I knew you would have done something like that in your younger days. Let's talk about liability on the part of farmers and ranchers. As long as we're talking about, issues like right to repair. I mean, where does liability lie with the actual producer when it gets right down to it?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it and then might pass it on to Kevin just to make sure I'm saying everything correctly. So if a farmer makes a change to their equipment, and let's say they want to modify, or they feel like they want to do something to their equipment that is illegal or is against the rules, that's their liability to deal with. And that's the whole idea of you owning your equipment. You own it, and if you are going to do something illegal or make a change, that's on you. And this bill does not change that. This bill doesn't put liability on the dealer. It does not put it on the manufacturer. And everything that was illegal before is still legal after. So, and that's a really big deal for the manufacturers and for the dealers to know, is that we're not shifting any liability here. Everyone's still in charge of the things that they do on their own time. And so I'll let Kevin add on to that if he feels like he can.
No, nothing necessary. I think you nailed it.
Well, good. Well, we're starting to get some good discussion amongst the panelists, and actually more questions are starting to trickle in from our guests that are joining us during tonight's town hall meeting. Just a reminder that, this is an interactive session, and we encourage more participation. More participation is better. Another question that just came in through the Zoom chat room is, what states have had success with right to repair, and what leads to success or failure with this type of legislation? Kevin, I'm guessing you better take this one.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So we haven't had an agricultural right to repair bill pass yet. And the way that we see it, right, when it happened with cars, when that bill passed back in 2012 in Massachusetts, basically all the major manufacturers came to the table and agreed to start providing this because they didn't want to have to deal with different regulations in different states. So we think that, when we do win, that will be the case, and that will continue to kind of become the law of the land. So, it's a hump to get over, absolutely, but I don't think there's a better place to do it than Montana.
Very good. One of our virtual guests tonight during the town hall meeting is Montana Farmers Union member Eric Sommerfeld, and he asked, if it's new and under warranty, you wouldn't be modifying it, just fixing it.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement, and I'm not sure Walter might even be able to comment on the warranty part, or Kevin, but if you're under warranty, if you take it to the dealer and you're under warranty, they're going to fix it under the warranty. But this bill itself actually doesn't meddle with warranties at all. And so we decided to not touch warranties because it's a really big issue for the dealers and manufacturers. So I don't know if Walter or Kevin can help me out with that a bit.
Well, I have in kind of tongue in cheek told the manufacturers in the past that if they're not going to allow us the right to repair our own equipment, then they should just damn well put it on a permanent warranty, so that I don't ever have to worry about it. And that's part of the problem here, is that the equipment manufacturers are trying to control everything from start to finish. And, you know, farmers and ranchers, we're an independent bunch, and we like to control our own destiny. I think Will Downs there, Russell, he might even have a story to share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Will, if you're still with us, go ahead and tell us what's on your mind.
This here's a service manual for a 1991 combine, the very first combine I ran. You can basically rebuild any part of that combine through that service manual. Now I have to get access to any service bulletins or the service manual online from the dealer. So that's a hurdle there in itself. But with the bill in general, this bill is a jobs builder for the state. It creates opportunities for small businesses to create their own business of repairing equipment in the state. In fact, a good friend of mine does it here in Billings, and he runs into the same hurdles we do. Let's see here. So on our farm, we run 2 Case IH combines. We can harvest about 1,000 bushels an hour. So every minute that we're not harvesting on our farm costs us a lot of money, especially if the next day's a storm event. So the sooner we get our equipment repaired, the better when it comes to harvest time or any time on the farm. So I'm fully in support of this bill, and I appreciate everybody's effort.
Well, thanks for describing your personal experience. And Will, I don't know if you were on the program, but the combine behind me is actually one of your guys's from a radio and TV story I did with you and your family a couple years ago. So a lot has changed with the technology, and I've seen that piece of equipment in action at your guys's farm near Molt. Another question we have in the chat room is, will dealers and or mechanics experience a loss of income if a right to repair piece of legislation is in fact passed in our state legislative session? Katie or Mark, you want to address that?
You know, I'll jump in on that one, if you would. You know, during the harvest season, during the seeding season, the busy seasons, our equipment dealers are swamped. They're not able to keep up with all of the work that they have to do. And yet, if I hired another mechanic to fix my tractor, I'm still going to be buying my parts from my local dealer. There's no getting around that part. And oftentimes, you know, these mechanics are local mechanics that are our neighbors that are working on the rest of our equipment, and they're available to come out on a spot moment and help us through a quick problem.
Yeah, and I'd just add on to that real quick that I think for fixing smaller issues, this is going to be something to get it done quick and fast. And if it is something bigger, you might want to go back to your trusted dealer and use them. And so I don't think this is taking from them. It's just making it so you guys have an easier time figuring out what's going on and what you need to do.
Well, we do have some other questions coming in from the online guests we have. And Eric Bergman, you're with us on the town hall meeting tonight. Go ahead and ask your question and direct it to a specific panelist or just whoever. Go ahead, Eric.
Thanks, Russell. You know, maybe this would be for Kevin and or Katie Sullivan or Senator Sweeney, Mark Sweeney. And it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but it's a serious question. You know, besides the equipment manufacturers, who is against legislation like this and for what reasons? I guess some things have come up, you know, that the dealerships might feel threatened, or it sounds like is an issue. But I'm just curious, what is the opposition and what would be the rational argument against a legislation like this?
Katie, do you want to talk about that, or do you want me to?
You start. I'll add on if I need.
That sounds great. So what we've seen on the national level is two large industry groups. So it's the Equipment Dealers Association as well as the Agricultural Equipment Manufacturer. So it's AEM and EDA. They've been the most vocal and against any sort of right to repair legislation all across the country. As we've talked about, the real reason that that's the case is because they've got a pretty sweet deal by making all of the repair money that there is to be made out there, and that threatens them. Some of the things that they say are, talking about intellectual property theft that we address, right? That's not really the case. It's a little bit of a conflict or confusion. They also talk about, the worry that farmers might hurt themselves when fixing their own equipment, but y'all are the ones who have been working on this equipment, likely for your entire, however long you've been working on the farm. Maybe you've got generations worth of knowledge on this stuff. So, what we found is most of the time their arguments don't hold a lot of water. It's really more about their efforts to try and maintain the revenue streams that they've got.
I'll just add in that the two groups that Kevin mentioned are the only two opponents that I've heard from yet that I've been pitching this bill out. And that's the manufacturing groups that he mentioned. I haven't heard opposition from anyone else at this time.
Very good. Eric Sommerfeld, you have a question?
Well, not as much a question, but just an example of how this works. The combine that's sitting in my background there is not the very newest of John Deere machines, but for the longest time, they wouldn't even allow you access to their parts manuals online unless you spent thousands and thousands of dollars just to buy the parts manual. And then if you did have a problem, I had one with a air conditioning system. And if I would have had the parts manual, it would have been great, but I had to have somebody come and hook up their computer just so they could tell me exactly where it was that the problem was, because I couldn't, without going, oh, I'm going to replace a compressor or this. It just ended up being a simple valve, but without even having access to a parts manual, let alone the ability to have access to the computer hookup. If I'd had that computer system that I could go and plug it in myself, I could have done it. I suffered through 7 hours of sitting in a giant glass box at 90 plus degrees, waiting for the dealer to show up, hook it up and go, yeah, oh, that's what it is. We got to tear this apart. That would have saved me a lot of time and a lot of headache. And this is a great bill. And I thank the sponsors, and it's going to be great for us, just to repair what we've got without having to go through something so complex.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with simplicity. Agriculture is tough enough, and we've got a lot of irons in the fire on any given day, as you guys well know better than me. I do have another question that I'll just ask to the panelists or the other virtual guests that we have on the program tonight. One of the things that has been brought to my attention is, will right to repair force the agricultural equipment manufacturers to hand over trade secrets? I mean, that's just something that we hear in the countryside. Is that true? Is it not true? What do we need to know when it comes to right to repair legislation?
I'll take a stab at this and then pass it on to Kevin. So one of my day jobs is IP law. So I help businesses protect trade secrets. And I tell you right now, I'm not going to do anything that takes that away, because I think it's important. In America, we protect people's inventions and we help them start business. So there's nothing in here that's I'm not trying to do that. I can tell you right now. But one thing about keeping a trade secret is that the company has to keep it a secret. And so the idea that a company would go ahead and write their trade secrets in a manual and then send it out to everybody, in my point of view, that doesn't really make sense because it would no longer be a trade secret. And so just like in terms of the law, that doesn't, I just don't buy that argument. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. They don't need to tell you their trade secrets for you to have a diagnostic tool that tells you what to fix. So that's my thoughts right now. I don't know if Kevin wants to talk about that.
I think you're right on, right? The information that it takes to fix the stuff that we own is not a trade secret. And in the bill, as Representative Sullivan has written it, there's an exemption saying nothing in this bill shall be construed to require a manufacturer to provide a trade secret. So it's clearly written. That's not what we're after. We just want the repair materials.
Well, we have some great discussion going on. Thank you, everybody, for throwing in with questions and discussions and answers. And that's the whole purpose of a town hall meeting, whether in person or in these crazy times, doing it virtually. And we're having some good discussion. A question in the chat room from Zach Kaplan was, has there been any response to either bill from the governor's office, whether they would be in favor or in opposition of a right to repair legislative measure from either one of you or both of you?
I haven't chatted with the governor's office yet, but I am happy to. I'm not sure about Mark.
I have not either. And actually, I'm just kind of sitting back and watching Katie's bill progress. And I look forward to sitting down with you, Katie, and after tonight's discussion and hearing some of the people participating, some of their thoughts, and get my head around it a little bit more. But yeah, it'd be worthwhile going and talking to the governor's office. For me, it just seems so basic. All the farms and ranches that I've been to, like Walter said, you're an independent source. You're capable of fixing and repairing, and you might not have the dealer available in the small community, but you probably have a mechanic there that's able to help and get that equipment out on the land. Like you said, minutes mean a lot of profit when you're up against weather and time and to get the job done. So repairmen might not be available to come out. So it just seems like a pretty basic Montana solution to me.
Yeah, very well said, Mark. I want to take a break from the questions and invite Walter Schweitzer or even Kim Mangold with the Montana Farmers Union, or maybe other folks with MFU that are joining us as part of tonight's town hall meeting, to maybe share where we can find important information about right to repair, this big topic that we've been discussing now for the better part of 45 minutes. Because there is some very valuable resources, either in person or online, or through social media channels. Walter, Kim, anybody else at MFU, please feel free to throw out that important information before we get to the end of the program.
So it looks like Lindsay is popped up. There we go. Look at her.
There it is, right there. It's on our website, actually, Montana Farmers Union website. And you'll have a lot of some of our other initiatives are on there also, but the right to repair information is there. And then you'll be able to link up with what Kevin is working on the national level also.
Yeah, so you can go to MontanaFarmersUnion.com, and we have a box there that clicks right to repair. And there'll be information on our the bills that Representative Sullivan and Senator Sweeney have. You can also go to montanarepair.repair.org. Is that right, Kevin? Did I say that right?
Yeah, I just put it in the chat. So montana.repair.org. It's a really handy tool that all you have to do is put in your zip code and it will connect you with your legislator yourself. So it saves you the hassle of finding them.
And as Representative Sullivan said, and Senator Sweeney, calling your legislators, texting your legislators. You can also call the 444-4800 and just ask them to deliver a message to your legislator or to the committee that you support the right to repair your own equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we heard from both Katie and Mark, I mean, they're in Helena working for you, and they're not just their constituents in their own districts, but for everybody, for the good of Montana. And in this case, for the good of Montana's #1 industry, agriculture. They've shared some of their contact information in the chat room. You can, after this program, you can go back and find it there. I'm sure if you called the Montana Farmers Union office in Great Falls, they would be happy to share that same contact information. They're busy people, but they want to hear from you. And like they both mentioned, text them. I mean, everybody can get a text when they're in the middle of 100 other things and still address it while it's fresh and top of mind. So take advantage of that. I mean, these folks are working hard for you, and so is the Montana Farmers Union and other Montana agricultural organizations on this issue, and gosh, countless others. So, back to Right to Repair. I mean, questions from our guests that are joining us, or do you have anything else? Well, we've got, these panelists of experts with us that have taken time out of their day to talk about this issue that, if it hasn't, sooner or later probably will affect your agricultural operation in some form or fashion.
I guess I want to get to the Eric Bergman had asked about competing against our dealer. And, I had this conversation with Ken Wheeler, who owns the John Deere dealerships around me. And he says, if the farmers, his big farmers especially, had access to this software and could do their own troubleshooting, a lot of times it's nuisance problems that's tying up his techs during the busy harvest season, running out there to just quickly find out that it was a small problem. And Frontline Ag has made available the software and hardware. It comes at a cost, but they have made it available, and it's for that reason. And I'm just glad that Representative Sullivan and Senator Sweeney are proposing this bill that would really require all the equipment manufacturers, dealers in the state to do the same thing.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I was just going to say, somebody asked earlier who would be against this, and that's the question I come up with also. And I understand now that the manufacturers, but it just really seems like this just cuts to the core of Montana agriculture business and the independence and having an efficient operation. So I look forward to working with everybody.
Well, even if there is some opposition out there, I mean, the best part about the political system here in Montana and elsewhere is, I mean, you bring your opposing questions or whatever it might be, and you work them out. And at the end of the day, you're supposed to work them out for the better of, in this particular instant, our #1 driving economic industry, and that's agriculture. I mean, if we can't keep our farmers and ranchers and rural communities alive and thriving, Montana is in a world of hurt.
Hey, Russell, I see the past president of the grain growers, Montana Grain Growers. He's got his hand up. You got a question, Vince?
Oh, thanks, Walt. No, not so much a question as much as a statement, but I think a lot of this is just going to be used to, like you said, a lot of these are not major issues. They're nuisance issues. And a lot of us live a long ways away. I mean, it costs me probably $1,000 just to have someone show up at my doorstep. And if they don't know what the problem is, then they got to make another trip. So if I have the tool, at least we can call, we can talk about it. We'll be still using the dealer. We can talk about it on the phone, say punch this, punch this. At least the $1,000 will only be spent once to come up and get the problem fixed rather than 2 or 3 times, And I believe that's kind of where, I think that's going to be where it's used the most rather than actual people fixing the problem. If you can, and they don't want to spend time on the road either. That's a waste of their day or better, So I agree. It's a win-win for many people here.
Yeah, thanks, Walter, for grabbing Vince. I didn't see him there raising his hand and, trying to get on, Thanks, Vince, for participating.
Don't worry, I'm used to you ignoring me, Russell.
Whatever.
I see Sarah Rocker's got her hand up too.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi there. I keep laughing because I'm really jealous of Will's big book, by the way, because I love those. But I've had kind of a unique problem. I'm out in Eastern Montana. We don't have a John Deere dealer in my town anymore. We have one mechanic who I'm lucky lives around the corner from me. But part of the thing I've run into is I'm beginning. I left for a long time and came back. So I don't have that recognizable name where they know it's going to be a big deal. And it feels like I can't even get people to call me back. I can't get people to call me back. They don't always take me seriously because I'm a woman, maybe. So the issue for me becomes I can't get anyone to come help me unless it's my neighbors, which are great. But we've run into the same problem where luckily my stuff is old. I don't have fancy new equipment, but the little bit that I do have, when it has come up as, again, it's usually a sensor. It shuts down the tractor in the middle of haying or the combine the first day of soybeans, or and especially with the soybean issue this year, the combine went down the first day we were cutting soybeans, but we were also still harvesting sugar beets. And it is just my dad and I. We don't have anybody else. So when anything goes wrong, we have to stop everything. We were stopping 2 harvests this time. And it was something simple. And I didn't bring it in. I have a little thing that I got for cars. So any of our trucks, any of our cars, you plug it into that little thing that mechanics use, and it's a Bluetooth reader to my phone. And I can read why my check engine lights are on, if I should worry about it, if it's a gas cap. I'm hoping that this can help get something like that for my tractor I just bought a year ago that, while I love it, it's got computers and it makes me a little nervous because I don't have a book. It's got an operator's manual that barely tells me how to drive it. Which luckily I already knew. So I'm hoping that there will be some progress where we can get things that we can find besides YouTube videos, or calling a friend that might have the same tractor and seeing if they've had this issue, because I can't afford to go down. There's 2 of us trying to harvest 5 different crops, sometimes all at the same time. So we really need this to go through.
Thank you for sharing that story, Sarah. Very beneficial for all of us, especially Katie and Mark, as they deliver not just your message, but all these great messages we've heard tonight on the right to repair bill working its way through the legislature. Walter, I see you pointing at something.
So I just want to make sure that everyone here understands. We all realize and think that this is a no-brainer. That the legislators in Helena, they can see that this is an issue that affects their neighbors and their constituents. And so it's going to be a no-brainer. It'll be an easy lift for Representative Sullivan and Senator Sweeney to get this slammed through the legislative process. But we got to remember, we're taking on John Deere. We're taking on Case New Holland, AGCO Alice. These are 3 of the largest equipment manufacturers in the world, that they manufacture about 85% of the equipment that farmers use all over the world. And they're not going to roll over easy. As Representative Sullivan already said, she just put the title of the bill in, and she got called by their lobbyists saying, hey, you don't have to worry about this. We're taking care of it. And so it's not going to be easy. It's going to take all of us to jump in here and help them reach out to our legislators, reach out to the leaders in our community, and let them know how important this issue is to us.
Well said, Walter. And I know everybody's time is valuable, and we are coming up on 8 o'clock. We've been at this town hall meeting now for a good hour. Before we go ahead and wrap things up, are there any other questions out there from our guests who have joined us virtually? And if there is,
Russell, actually, Eric Summerfield has his hand up.
Okay, Eric, go ahead.
I just want to say, this is right to repair. it's not right to modify. You know, if I wanted to go on and take a piece of equipment and eliminate, say, the ERG, the emission stuff, I could find that stuff illegally on the internet now and have somebody give me something to do that. If I wanted to boost my horsepower and illegally do that past my warranty, I could do that. It's not that. It's just the ability to fix what's there. I don't want to change my equipment. I just want to be able to have somebody fix it for me without paying an insane amount of money to do it. That's what this bill is about, and I hope everybody supports it and passes it. We help get it passed.
Representative Sullivan, do you have any closing remarks or anything final to add, or even you, Senator Sweeney?
Sure, I'll just say that I wish the hearing was right now, because everything I just heard and everything that was said was so compelling. And I just feel like this is the type of story. These are the stories that when we hear them make a difference. So I want to just date this on the hearing date, so everyone should join in, because we can solve it. I think we'll work hard. I'll work hard. But it was really great hearing everything everyone had to say. So thank you.
Well, I think the good thing for all of us, including you and Mark, is Farmers Union is recording this, so we'll be able to pick out everybody's sound bites and testimony, I guess, so to speak, out of this that you can deliver to some of your other legislators up there in Helena and those that Walter mentioned. You know, it sounds great. It sounds like a no-brainer, but you know, by the time tomorrow morning rolls around, I mean, you know, you guys are all working on lots of different things up there. So we just all got to do our part to make sure this stays on top of the priority list. Kevin, we certainly appreciate you taking time to join us tonight all the way from the Eastern Seaboard, and any closing comments or any other words of wisdom or anything else we should know about or empower us before we go?
You know, I again, thanks for letting me be a part of this. It's really exciting to see all of you coming together and speak up for solutions to the problems that you face every day. So I don't know, this is the reason that I do the work. I love seeing the excitement around it. And I really hope, like Rep. Sullivan has said, that you'll channel this into testimony when the hearing date comes, because that is such a great opportunity to pass along that message and really strengthen the case for this bill.
Absolutely. Senator Sweeney, anything?
Yeah, I just think Kate, Representative Sullivan hit the nail right on the head that, you know, if we could capture this on the bill hearing day, you know, once that's given a day, I think you need to network and get that information out to everybody that's participated here and the other farmer union members, because it is a real unique opportunity. You know, you don't have to fight the weather, the bad roads that we're having now to come to Helena to testify. You can do it just like this. And obviously, everybody participating in this Zoom can do the same thing if time permits. I realize that you're up against, you know, trying to get out and feed and calve and things like that. But it's so important to speak as a proponent, because that gets everybody on the committee's attention. You know, if you have 10 people, a dozen people that have real life experiences and how it can affect you, that you're not trying to take, you know, money away from the local dealer, but this just gives you the basic tools to carry on your operation in an efficient manner. And so in the committee, you know, we'll have 10, 12 people sitting around. And if you can come up and say that on the Zoom, you know, as opposed to maybe one or two of the equipment manufacturers coming in and doing the same thing, to me, it just rings true. And also, pay attention who's on the committees. Now, I think Representative Sullivan was going to bring this in the Agriculture Committee. Mine might come in front of Business and Labor. Not quite sure yet, but pay attention to who other committee members are on those and get a hold of them. Get a hold of everybody. Katie and I are of the same party. It's partisan politics out there. Call your representatives. They know who you are. They're your neighbors. They know what you're up against. We're all here to serve, and this is one of our number one, if not the number one industry that drives the economy in Montana. So you'll get everybody's attention, but you need your voices heard.
Well, without question, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought all of us a fair amount of challenges in the past year or so, but it's also, as you and Representative Sullivan and others have mentioned, it's in a crazy way, it's also opened up some opportunities, and those opportunities are, it's never been easier in a weird way to participate in the legislative process here in Montana. So please take advantage of all the avenues out there. Zoom, again, just texting folks like Katie and Mark and your own legislators in your home districts, and take advantage of that, because as I said earlier, they do want to hear from you. We certainly thank everybody, our panelists and our guests, for joining us tonight. And Lindsay, before we go and before we sign off, can we put that contact and information, that one pager that you had up a little bit earlier, back up on the screen to show folks just how easy it is to learn more about right to repair and the piece of legislation that Representative Sullivan and State Senator Sweeney are working on behalf of Montana Farmers Union and others, and take advantage of the Montana Farmers Union itself. I mean, they're a wealth of resources. They have Kim and Rachel working the halls of the state capitol every day during the session. And other officers and leaders like Walter as president, they're easily, accessible. Drop them a line, drop them a text. I know for a fact, I know from personal experience, they will get back to you. So with that, I just appreciate everybody's time. And again, we appreciate the Montana Farmers Union and Northern Plains Resource Council for hosting tonight's town hall meeting on this big issue, right to repair, and how folks at home, folks like you, folks like Montana's farmers and ranchers can participate and hopefully see some positive momentum in this current legislative session. So with that, I say good night and have a wonderful night.